and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Louisa Britton, your top stories on Thursday, the 18th of January. It's like living in the Wild West. Farmers say they're threatened as poaching crimes get worse.
They've been hurt by these people. They've also had one had his paws nailed down to his kennel because he spoke out.
Storm chaos again. Kent battered by strong winds and high rain.
Compared with the rest of the country, we've got off lightly.
We must put victims first. Kent's Police and Crime Commissioner ups funding to help those affected by crime.
Actually, some increased confidence of people coming forward, wanting to seek help, and we're doing everything we can to help limit the impact on their lives and help them move on.
And in sport, Cal gets the call from Gills. Callum Riley becomes Steve Lovell's first signing of the January window.
But first tonight, there's been almost 700 incidents of poaching in Kent over the last 3 years, and farmers say it's getting worse despite being outlawed more than a decade ago. They say their land's constantly being trespassed on by criminals for hunting and destroying their property. Kent Police are now working with farmers to tackle this issue. Harry Pete has this exclusive report which contains some graphic images.
A hare in a field running for its life from two dogs that have been sent out deliberately to chase it in what's known as hare coursing. The outcomes can be devastating, and farmers whose land is trespassed on illegally to carry out these acts find it even more difficult to confront poachers than ever before.
We've had farmers that have spoken out, and they've been hurt by these people. They've also had one had his paws nailed down to his kennel because he spoke out. So you can understand that these are not very nice people to be dealing with.
Since being banned by the 2004 Hunting Act, hare coursing continues in Kent in great numbers. In the last 3 years, there were 136 total incidents, with Ashford, Shepway, Thanet and Dover being the worst areas. And it's not just the huge impact on wildlife that poaching can have. Those who trespass on farmers' land to carry out this illegal poaching cause serious damage to the farmland, like these tracks here behind me that have been caused by a car driving on the land. And this can have a massive impact and cost farmers thousands.
These people smash through gates, for example. They damage the crops that they're driving over. Farmers are having to dig furrows to try and stop them from being able to get onto the fields in the first place. So that takes time and money.
Kent Police's Rural Task Force has the job of trying to prevent these crimes, but say it can be a challenge.
There's lots of people doing it, I think, but they're good at it, and they know where they go. They generally go to the same locations, which is probably why the Romney Marsh is popular, because obviously it's flat land and there's a lot of open space.
The issue affects Kent and beyond, and despite the county having a specific rural team to tackle various crimes, there's still been almost 700 recorded incidents of poaching in Kent, including illegal fishing and game catching, with Ashford and Shepway again being the worst affected areas. So is enough being done?
Whether it's us as a physical attendance to that location, or whether we can deploy other types of technology, drone technology for example, is something that's in a developing state, and with landowners and gamekeepers alike, farmers, we're encouraging them to try and use technology as well, dash cams, mobile phones, to try and capture evidence for us as best they can.
Rural communities are being urged to work together on tackling the problem, but poachers are still showing no regard for the law or people's livelihoods. Harry Pete for KMTV in Lydd.
Storm Fion has devastated parts of Kent, causing trees to fall and left homes without power. A woman was left in hospital after a tree caused a crash, and train delays affected people trying to get to work. Poppy Jeffrey has more.
Last night, strong winds and rain battered Kent, causing county-wide chaos this morning. The storm brought dozens of trees down, as well as closing the QE2 bridge and the Sheppey crossing. A fallen tree is thought to have caused a two-car crash in Upchurch, where a woman had to be cut out of her car and taken to hospital with her injuries. Meanwhile, on the Medway City estate, a large tree blocked the road. Last night, Storm Fion caused devastation across the county. One of the places it hit was the Medway City Estate here in Strews. And behind me, a tree that fell and blocked the road is being shredded and removed. Flood warnings were put in place for areas including the Isle of Sheppey, the River Medway, Dartford to All Hallows and Whitstable to Margate for the high tide from 1:30 p.m. today. Those living in Walderslade Road were also stuck without power for more than 5 hours as a fallen tree pulled down power cables. I spoke to Jeremy Proctor, who monitors the weather, to find out the scale of the storm.
It's a fairly low, an area of low pressure. And the reason we had the high winds is, although the actual centre of the depression passed through just around about south, around about Manchester, as you can see, the isobars, that's the relative difference between the low pressure and the high pressure to the south, are very tightly packed, and the tighter the isobars are, the higher the wind speeds. So in this area we got off comparatively lightly. In Somerset and in Norwich they recorded speeds of 83 miles an hour. The highest speed I recorded here was 41 miles an hour at 6 o'clock this morning. That shows here rain, this period of rain, and you can see this warm front here that went through at about 9 o'clock, and the rainfall lasted from about 9 to 6. Yes, there's trees down. We're fortunate that the trees are not in leaf at the moment, otherwise there would have been a lot more. But we, compared with the rest of the country, we've got off lightly.
It sounds as if the storm has now passed and clean-up teams have worked through the day removing debris. It looks like it will be business as usual tomorrow. This is Poppy Jeffrey for KMTV.
Next tonight, a survey's found that nurseries are making up for financial losses by upping the costs for younger children and charging for meals and nappies. The survey by the Preschool Learning Alliance found only a third of nurseries are delivering care for free. But should the government be doing more to help out parents? We asked shoppers in Chatham.
I always thought there was a childminder for years, but it just got to the point where it was too costly for parents to put them in childminding. So I can understand if parents decide to stay at home, then fine. I've got no problem with it.
I do think that there should be more options out there for single parents so that they're able to go out and work and also look after their children.
If they can afford it, parents should pay, help pay towards it. Those that can't but need it, then the government should help financially more.
What's the point of sending them to a nursery and then working at McDonald's, taking somebody else's job away? So logistically speaking, it'd be better if they're at home, paid more money to bring their own children up.
I was earning good money, so my wife could stay indoors, but nowadays people ain't earning the money. So basically, they got to go out to work to make ends meet.
I think the government should be subsidizing childcare, and the people have a chance to develop themselves, have jobs.
I think that's a no-brainer. If you're on your own, you need support, and if that is from the government or from local communities or from your family, then that's what you need to do.
Shoppers in Chatham there. But what do you think? Should the government be doing more to help out parents? Join the debate on social media using the hashtag #KentSays. Now, a Kent school's assuring parents that there's not an outbreak of meningitis at its premises. A member of staff at Maskell's Academy in Paddockwood contracted the deadly virus and was taken to hospital. They're in a stable condition. Experts are telling residents in the county to stay vigilant and look out for early signs of the condition. Vanessa Whiting from Meningitis Now is here to tell us more. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for asking me.
How dangerous is meningitis?
It's quite dangerous, yeah. It can happen quite quickly. You've got to make sure you understand the what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the symptoms that you might want to look out for?
We give out these cards which show you inside what symptoms they are. So a fever, cold hands and feet, vomiting, drowsiness, confusion, irritability.
And in terms of, obviously, you work now for meningitis now. What made you get into sort of campaigning for it?
In 1992, I lost my son, Luke, within 12 hours of him contracting it. And back then, the awareness wasn't as out there as it is now. So since then, I've been working along with a charity. Steve Damon, the charity founder, he came to my house within hours of Luke dying. And then since then I've been fundraising, doing awareness events and all sorts of things to help other people, because that charity helped me so much as well.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, what should parents be looking out for if they think their child or anyone they know might have meningitis?
Well, to start with, sickness, high temperature, and that not looking like that not wants to look at bright lights, and also you know your own child, you know, and if you've got you think it's that at all, straight to hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of acting as fast as possible.
Because they can have the antibiotic,
absolutely.
And then that won't hurt if it's not meningitis, and it would probably save the life.
Exactly, worth being cautious there. Yeah. Thank you ever so much for coming in and talking about it.
Thank you very much.
Now, coming up after the break, how more money could help fund more local support services as the number of victims of crime in the county is going up. See you soon. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Now, figures show more people are reporting crimes in Kent and the numbers of victims is rising. Kent's Police and Crime Commissioner says he's going to give local services more funding to help support victims of crime in the county. The announcement was made by Matthew Scott at an event at the Forces Training College in Maidstone this morning. I went along. Victims of crime were the focus of an event this morning chaired by Kent's Police and Crime Commissioner Matthew Scott. As part of the conference at the Kent's Police Training College in Maidstone, he announced a 10% increase in funding to more than £500,000 for local community safety partnerships across the county to help prevent violence. It comes as the number of crimes being reported in Kent are increasing and meaning that more and more victims of sexual assault, domestic abuse and hate crime are coming forward.
Prevention, they say, is often better than cure. I'll be giving extra resources to local councils to help prevent crime in their local communities. But also what we're seeing in certain areas is more people who have historically been victims of crime but having the confidence to now come forward. So you do have rises in certain areas, but actually some increased confidence of people coming forward wanting to seek help, and we're doing everything we can to help limit the impact on their lives and help them move on.
Crime numbers are increasing. That's not necessarily because more crime is happening, and I think that's really important to say. It can be that actually it's easier to report crime, and people actually are more aware of the support that's out there, so they have a motivation to report the crime that's happened to them.
Victim support services are at the front line when it comes to helping people who've been victims of violence, something Baroness Newlove has been campaigning for in Parliament.
My husband was kicked to death by a gang of youths in 2007 and was witnessed by my 3 young daughters. So I really get the journey of what happens to victims, and we're still going through it. So I do have that kind of inside knowledge, as you put it, and that's what I try to get over. While we can have processes and systems, it's the emotion and what each individual's going through.
As part of the campaign, Matthew Scott also announced he would be calling for a review on mental health provision for victims of crime and for a new victims law to be passed by government. He also said he wanted to improve outcomes on hate crime, something charities say they're seeing more of in the county.
So that could be because people are more aware, and also because people feel more empowered and have more options to do so. We're working with schools at the moment and investing our time and telling schools about disability, about difference, about the 5 strands of inequality.
With more people coming forward and reporting crimes, it seems these measures were welcomed by the different organisations present here as they continue to help those who've been victims of crime in the county. Now, several cases of MRSA have been confirmed at a hospital in Dartford. There's been an outbreak of the potentially deadly condition on the spruce ward at Darren Valley Hospital. It's not known exactly how many people have the infection, but it was reported last night 7 patients were affected. MRSA is resistant to many common antibiotics and often occurs in hospitals or nursing homes. It can be caught through immediate contact or by touching surfaces. We approached the hospital for comment. Now, a young mum's been sent to prison for throwing a glass at another woman at a nightclub in Sheerness. Romana Price left her victim unable to eat properly for months after seriously damaging her teeth. Police at first arrested the wrong person after the attack in the toilets at Tantra, but Debbie Glover, who was the victim in the attack, did her own detective work after obtaining CCTV footage from the club. The 21-year-old, who has a 4-year-old son, was sentenced to 12 months in prison. Police are looking for 2 men in connection with the theft of power tools from parked vehicles in Tunbridge Wells. Since the start of this year, there's been a number of thefts and attempted thefts in the town, including this one, prompting police to release this CCTV footage. The crime have taken place in areas all over the town. Power tools, garden trimmers and a chainsaw have all been reported stolen. Now, with news of a world record being broken in the county, here's Keelan with the sport.
Gillingham have made their first signing of the January transfer window today, with Callum Riley joining on loan from Bury until the end of the season. The signing gives a much-needed boost to the central midfield position the Gills have been targeting this window. Boss Steve Lovell believes he's the sort of addition that will comfortably slot into his squad.
He's left-sided midfield player, which I think we needed. We needed someone to give us that balance on the left-sided midfield, and he's a very good footballer, very intelligent. And what I like about him is his mobility and his fitness. And he'll fit in with us very, very nicely, and I'm really pleased to have him here.
Next this evening, we're off to Brands Hatch, where the track hosted trucks as opposed to fast cars. It's all because a collection of disabled strongmen were attempting to create a world record. I went along to see if it could be done. Gearing up for a place in the history books, a potential world record awaits for these group of disabled athletes. Standing in their way, trucks. Pull 3 HGVs simultaneously and the accolade is theirs. Final preparations and practice runs just taking place on the track down below here behind me, and it's determination, strength and motivation, just a couple of the characteristics which they'll need to show in order to break this world record attempt, and it's those same traits which the athletes have used in order to overcome their disabilities. And on a freezing cold day here at Brands Hatch, it's those stories that are warming the hearts.
I'm above knee amputee, lost my left leg in a motorcycle accident 27 years ago, and I've always kept fit and active. You know, I've not dwelled on it or anything like that. I just carry on, like life goes on, doesn't it?
I've got a condition called ataxia. I've got slight atrophy of the part of my brain that controls my movement. Training for Disability Strongman has really helped. The strength training has helped the stability in my joints. You know, I'm walking a lot better than I was 2 or 3 years ago.
I was born with my left hand missing. It's as simple as that, really. I like to think it's not affected me. My parents were worried that from birth I wouldn't be able to do and join in with able-bodied stuff, but I think proving that wrong and, you know, setting the record straight.
And Luke sets the world record straight away as he's first to go, pulling 3 trucks. It's a far cry from the humble beginnings of his strongman journey.
Started going down our cellar, lifting baked beans, as daft as that sounds, on the left side, and yeah, that really hit it. And then from there we progressed onto weights, and the weights got heavier and heavier.
Whether or not the athletes began with baked beans, their performances are remarkable. During the course of the day, an incredible 5 world records are broken, 2 of them going to Michael Bishop, the second strongest disabled man in the world. And despite his lofty placing, he feels there's still more to come.
I'm learning as I go, not only the strongman movements and events, but also how to kind of pace my body and my nervous system so that I don't overdo it. The motivation to try all these new things and be involved with a sport that is snowballing is great.
Darren Greenfield is another new world record holder, victorious in the seated category, pulling 3 trucks in 22.4 seconds. The former wheelchair basketball and canoeing Paralympian is one of the oldest competitors and only began training for strongman last year.
I think you need things like this, especially being disabled, because like it's motivation. You know, you need something to keep your mind ticking over and stuff like that. And sport's one of the best ways to do it, I feel. It's my first year. I came second in Germany, silver medal, and this year I come 7th in the world. So there's still life in this old dog yet.
4 new world record holders, all with an extra anecdote for their inspirational stories. And as they pull away for another gruelling year, their mental toughness continues to be as impressive as their extraordinary strength. Keelan Webster, KMTV. That's all in sport for now. I'll be back with more for you later on in the programme.
Now, education chiefs in Kent have warned they face a funding shortfall of £100 million to build new and expand existing schools. A report setting out the predicted growth in demand for school places in Kent says the county needs more than 12,000 extra spots in the next 4 years. While our political editor Paul Francis joins me now. So, Paul, first of all, why is there such a high demand?
Well, it's not just one factor, it's a combination of different factors. There's been a growth in population in Kent, due partly to people coming into the county, and there's been a population surge which the County Council has known about for some time. On top of that, though, is an important factor to do with the government's programme for building schools, and it said that it wants extra places to be met by free schools. The problem is free schools haven't come forward with the necessary places that are needed.
Now, how quickly does the council need to find this cash?
Well, its plan sets out this growth timetable over the next 4 years, so it takes us up to 2022. Now, in that time, the council is expecting the population to grow even more, so the pressure is really on it. And the leader of the county council has effectively said, if we're to meet these costs, then we'll have to effectively take out a mortgage on County Hall.
And why is, like you said, a mortgage compared it to a mortgage?
Well, part of the reason here is that the government does give a certain amount of money, it's called basic need money for pupils, but the County Council says that's not enough to cover the actual costs, so that leaves a shortfall.
And does this affect both primary and secondary schools?
It's mainly in secondary schools, but the fact that the demand is increased has been due to a bulge in the primary school population feeding through into the secondary system, and that's where the pressure lies.
Seems like quite a difficult situation. Thanks for that, Paul. As Storm Fion moves away, tonight will be fairly cold across the county with lows of 3 degrees and 2 in Tunbridge Wells. Tomorrow morning you can expect clear skies and lots of sun, but temperatures will stay chilly into the afternoon and it will turn overcast with some sun still out in Chatham and Ashford. Looking forward to the weekend, things will stay mostly cloudy with temperatures warming up to 9 degrees on Monday. Up next, a leading councillor joins us to talk about the lack of services for deaf people in the county. See you after the break. And welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Louisa Britton, your top stories on Thursday, the 18th of January. It's like living in the Wild West. Farmers say they're threatened as poaching crimes gets worse.
They've been hurt by these people. They've also had one had his pet had his paws nailed down to his kennel because he spoke out.
Storm chaos again. Kent battered by strong winds and high rain.
Compared with the rest of the country, we've got off lightly.
We must put victims first. Kent's Police and Crime Commissioner ups funding to help those affected by crime.
Actually, some increased confidence of people coming forward, wanting to seek help, and we're doing everything we can to help limit the impact on their lives and help them move on.
And in sport, Downton worry. Kent announced former ECB head honcho Paul Downton as their new director of cricket.
Ashford and Shepway are the two worst places in Kent for illegal poaching, according to exclusive stats given to KMTV. Despite being banned in 2005, there's been almost 700 recorded incidents of poaching in Kent. Farmers and police are now working together to stop the criminals. This report contains graphic images.
A hare in a field running for its life from two dogs that have been sent out deliberately to chase it in what's known as hare coursing. The outcomes can be devastating, and farmers whose land is trespassed on illegally to carry out these acts find it even more difficult to confront poachers than ever before.
We've had farmers that have spoken out, and they've been hurt by these people. They've also had one had his pet had his paws nailed down to his kennel because he spoke out. So you can understand that these are not very nice people to be dealing with.
Since being banned by the 2004 Hunting Act, hare coursing continues in Kent in great numbers. In the last 3 years, there were 136 total incidents, with Ashford, Shepway, Thanet and Dover being the worst areas. And it's not just the huge impact on wildlife that poaching can have. Those who trespass on farmers' land to carry out this illegal poaching cause serious damage to the farmland, like these tracks here behind me that have been caused by a car driving on the land. And this can have a massive impact and cost farmers thousands.
These people smash through gates, for example. They damage the crops that they're driving over. Farmers are having to dig furrows to try and stop them from being able to get onto the fields in the first place. So that takes time and money.
Kent Police's Rural Task Force has the job of trying to prevent these crimes, but say it can be a challenge.
There's lots of people doing it, I think, but they're good at it, and they know where they go. They generally go to the same locations, which is probably why the Romney Marsh is popular, because obviously it's flat land and there's a lot of open space.
There's still been almost 700 recorded incidents of poaching in Kent, including illegal fishing and game catching, with Ashford and Shepway again being the worst affected areas. Rural communities are being urged to work together on tackling the problem, but poachers are still showing no regard for the law or people's livelihoods. Harry Pete for KMTV in Lydd.
Next night, educational support for deaf children in England is in disarray, according to a report which shows the number of specialist teachers in Kent and the rest of the country has been cut, while the number of children requiring support is going up. The research by the Consortium for Research into Deaf Education says that in some areas the situation is so critical there's just one specialist teacher for every 100 students. I'll talk a bit more about what provision for deaf children is like in Kent. I'm joined by Councillor Roger Goff, Cabinet Member for Children, Young People and Education at KCC. Thanks for coming in. What's the situation like in Kent?
Well, I think in Kent we're in a different position from much of the rest of the country because we've always worked closely actually with the Consortium survey. We've participated in that each year since it was set up in 2011. And our specialist service saw this issue coming. The Consortium's report quite rightly highlights how we've had many teachers who are specialists in this area reaching the point of retirement or certainly heading that way, and clearly there's not been, in many parts of the country, the recruitment to match that.
And how difficult is it to recruit these specialist teachers?
Well, it certainly is something that requires quite a lot of work, but it is something that's we've put a lot of effort into. Over the last decade, some 30 teachers have undergone the training to become a teacher of the deaf. That includes some who are going through it at the moment. But it's something that we've consistently worked on. And as I say, I think the specialist service in Kent looked at this issue some years ago, realised that this was indeed looming as a problem because many of those teachers were reaching retirement age and acted accordingly. So it certainly has proven to be ultimately successful in ensuring that we do get decent levels of coverage. There are around 550 children within our education system across Kent, school and preschool, who are therefore have a hearing impediment. So as you can see, the ratio of support to them is much higher than what was being described in some parts of the country.
And on a slightly different note, but still to do with children, we're talking early on in the programme about how county chiefs are saying that they'll need an extra £100 million to provide extra school places by 2022. How much of an issue is this for KCC?
It's a very significant issue, and it's something that we've been saying for a long time now. What's happened is really a combination of two things. On the one side, we have more children who are coming through the primary system. We've had big increases actually in our primary schools over the last 5 or 6 years to respond to that increased number. They're now coming through into secondary school in increasing numbers. So clearly there's a need for more secondary places, for new secondary schools in some parts of the county, Thanet being a good case in point. The second thing that's happened is that the so-called National Free School Programme has not been able to deliver in some of those key areas. That means it ultimately falls back to us to ensure that we run a process, what's called a competition process, for other free school providers to come forward. That's exactly what we're doing in Thanet at the moment.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for, but thanks ever so much for coming in. Next tonight, a survey carried out by the Preschool Learning Alliance has found only a third of nurseries are carrying out care totally free. Many centres, in an effort to make up financial losses, are charging for meals and nappies. But who should be the one at home raising the young ones? We asked shoppers in Chatham.
Years ago, I would have said the mother maybe at home. And the father working, but today I think it's too hard, and the way cost of living and everything else. So I think probably both parents should be working.
For me, it was easier than as everybody else because I'm self-employed, so I didn't have to ask for hours off or if child was sick. So my time was flexible.
It depends on the individuals because they may not be in that situation where both of them are working. They may be a single parent, so they don't have an option. So if it sits well with the lady to be at home and the husband go out and work, then that's fine. But if it doesn't and she's a single parent, then she doesn't have an option.
If they both need to work, then one of the parents should work through school hours so that there's always someone there to take them to school and also bring them home.
Traditionally it worked a lot better. I think babies and small children are more vulnerable and need to be with their mothers when they're younger.
It's not about who earns more, it's about making those decisions together and the best person to do the job. So no, it's not about money and it's not about gender at all.
Don't forget that you can keep up to date on all things going on in Kent by visiting our website kmtv.co.uk. You can check out some of our latest stories from across the county, like this video of an exhibition celebrating the life of the woman closest to one of our most famous Prime Ministers.
The saying goes that behind every great leader there's a great partner, and a new exhibition at Chartwell takes a look at one of the country's most notable.
Our exhibition at Chartwell this winter is about Clementine Churchill, so the lifelong love of Sir Winston Churchill. And she and Winston were married for over half a century, and she was an incredible support to him. Her story is definitely less well known than that of her husband, but is really vital to the story of her husband. I'm a great believer that together they were one of the greatest partnerships of the 20th century, but we have had to look further, delve deeper into those archives to get those really wonderful, rounded stories of her life.
We also wanted to bring across more elements about her life, so her role as a mother and a grandmother. And also what I found particularly interesting was looking at her private interests, so her interests in sport in particular. She was a very keen golfer, she was a very keen swimmer, and there's a lovely photo of her playing croquet on the croquet lawn at Chartwell. And also her early life as well, which from my point of view was probably one of the most challenging themes to bring across to people.
One of the many items on display is this never-before-seen childhood photo album showing Clementine's early years towards the end of the 19th century. It's very delicate, hence why I'm wearing these gloves here, and you can see photos of her with her siblings in Scotland and also a shot of her with her dog, Carlo.
I started at Chartwell.
Not many have a more intimate knowledge of the Baroness than her former private secretary, Noni Chapman.
I couldn't have had a better employer. I enjoyed it so much. I met the most fascinating people, and I went to all sorts of wonderful things with her. I even went on a couple of cruises with her, and all sorts of things. It was just amazing.
She was a very, very intelligent, eloquent woman. I think particularly in terms of her relationship with Winston, the support that she gave to him was what allowed him to achieve what he did. And in fact, there's a lovely quote from Winston when he says that the greatest achievement of his life was convincing his wife to marry him. So even he acknowledged just how important she was to him. And he also said that if it wasn't for her, his life and everything he achieved wouldn't have been possible.
Visitors to the Churchill family home have until February to discover more about the lady behind Britain's bulldog. Cameron Tucker, KMTV, Chartwell.
And coming up after the break, Keelan will be back with the sports, plus a singer-songwriter from Kent will be playing us out of the show. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV on Thursday the 18th of January. In case you missed it, poaching pests, farmers say they're threatened as poaching crimes get worse.
There's lots of people doing it, I think, but they're good at it, and they know where they go. They generally go to the same locations, which is probably why the Romney Marsh is popular.
Roads shut down, fallen trees and building damage. Kent battered by strong winds and high rain again.
Yes, there's trees down. We're fortunate that the trees are not in leaf at the moment, otherwise there would have been a lot more.
More funding for victims. Top police officials says more needs to be done to help those affected by crime.
While we can have processes and systems, it's the emotion and what each individual's going through. Everybody's different.
And in sport, Cal gets the call from Gills. Callum Riley becomes Steve Lovell's first signing of the January window.
Time now for your pick of the papers with a look at what's making the news in print, online and radio across Kent. Earlier on today, I spoke to the KM Group's Robert Barman, who started off by telling me about a seriously ill young boy who was saved by his mum.
Yeah, the first story is on the front page. It's about a mum who basically saved her son's life by giving him CPR. He's a 9-year-old boy called Cody who has got muscular dystrophy, and he had problems with his lungs. And around Christmas, the paramedics were called to his house when he was in quite a serious state by all accounts. And his mum's told how she gave him CPR before the paramedics arrived, and he's now in intensive care, still being looked after. We've spoken to the family, and they're holding a fundraising event for the Brompton Hospital, which is where Cody's being cared for. I'll get the details of this right. So it's on the 10th of March, which is a Saturday, at 6 o'clock at the Alfred Arms at Newtown in Ashford. So they're obviously hoping as many people go along to support that as possible.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about the second story then.
Yeah, the second story is a tribute's been paid to Sir Keith Speed, who was Ashford's MP from the mid-70s until 1997, when the current MP, Damien Green, took over. So he had quite an interesting career. Sir Keith Speed, he's credited with bringing the high-speed rail link to Ashford, which has obviously had a big impact on the town. He was also a Navy Minister in Margaret Thatcher's government, so he had quite an interesting career. He was aged 83, and obviously a lot of people have had nice things to say about him.
Fantastic. And the last story is about an independent coffee shop.
Yes, this is a big deal for Ashford High Street, the Burton site. Burton had been there for, I think, 84 years or so, from the 1930s onwards, and it shut a couple of years ago, and nothing permanent's taken its place. there's been Christmas shops and the usual sort of temporary things that spring up. But there's an application gone in for an independent coffee shop, which people have got high hopes for, I think, for brightening the high street up a bit.
I suppose lots of people will be welcoming a coffee shop in the middle of town. It's quite a great.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, they seem to be thriving everywhere in the country. So why not Ashford?
Lovely. Thanks ever so much for coming in, Rob.
Okay, no problem.
A reminder, you can watch Kent Tonight live and on catch up at our website kmtv.co.uk. You can stay up to date with all the news, sports and weather from right across Kent, whenever and wherever you are. You'll find breaking news, local features and repeats of our special programmes. Now, with more reaction to Gillingham's first signing of the January transfer window, here's Keelan with the sport. Before that, though, Keelan, a new director of cricket for Kent.
Yeah, Paul Downton has been the man that's been promoted to Director of Cricket, and he's most famous for being in charge at the ECB, and perhaps most famous there for putting an end to Kevin Peterson's Test career and England career overall. So I think that was really the start of his reign, a tumultuous 14 months as ECB Director, and that's really what he's best remembered for, and that's why probably Kent fans are not too enthused by this appointment, because when you think about that decision, probably didn't go down too well at the time, and ultimately didn't go down too well for England overall. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that plays out in the coming months. To football, and Gillingham have signed Bury midfielder Callum Riley on loan until the end of the season. It boosts competition for places in the central midfield position, where Mark Byrne has been a mainstay this season. The Irishman expects the addition of Riley to be an effective one.
It gives him more balance into the team, which we don't have a left-sided really midfielder there. With Billy kind of being out as well, but I think it brings a lot more balance to the team, more competition, which is good. I like to have competition in the team because it keeps everyone on their toes, doesn't it? And people ain't going out there and being complacent and thinking they're going to be picked every week, which good competition is good for the club.
As Dawn Fionn moves away, tonight will be fairly cold across the county with lows of 3 degrees and 2 in Tunbridge Wells. Tomorrow morning you can expect clear skies and lots of sun, but temperatures will stay chilly into the afternoon, and it will turn overcast with some sun still out in Chatham and Ashford. Looking forward to the weekend, things will stay mostly cloudy with temperatures warming up to 9 degrees on Monday. Now, 2017 was a good year for our music guest this week, releasing his first 3 singles, becoming a BBC introducing artist and graduating from uni. Not bad for Hannigan. He'll be hoping for more of the same in 2018 after moving back to Kent. And to tell us all about his music, I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Hannigan now. So thanks for coming in. How did you get into music?
From a young age, my parents had a lot of music in the house. Like on my mum's side, she was into like Led Zeppelin, Queen, and my dad, being raised in Dublin, he was kind of more Thin Lizzy, the Pogues, etc. Sort of that sort of thing. And then into my own way, I kind of grew into my own style of songwriting and listening to my own kind of music.
Obviously, 2017's been a great year. How's it been?
It's pretty insane. Like, to think I did not expect it to go as well as it did. I released my first 3 singles, as you've already said, and The Waves, as one, was picked up by BBC introducing in Cornwall, which is crazy, beyond my sort of wildest dreams. So I went and did a few gigs, a few festivals for them, and yeah, come back and everything's great. I'm loving it.
And you're back in Kent now. Any gigs coming up in the county?
Yeah, I'm at the Grey Lady in Tunbridge Wells on the 23rd. So yeah, if anyone's around, that'd be great to come down and have a listen to a few, maybe hear these 3 and a few more.
And tell me a little bit about the song you're going to be playing for us today.
I'm playing Put Down Your Phones, which was my last single I released. I did it in, I released it in September, I believe, and it's just a bit more, it's nowadays with technology and phones becoming more and more of an issue or a benefit, I don't know, I decided it was a good idea to write a song about it.
Take it away.
Thank you very much. There was law
In the hearts of us all there was air. It filled our bodies and our souls. In the night we dreamed to fly away. In the night we were just waiting for the day. Life is passing you by. Why don't you grip it by the hand? And lines are drawn in the sand. Touch the cities on which we stand on. Put down your phones and raise your lights. Mark your bodies and I'll mark mine. No one can show you, girl, you hold the key. Just live in the moment, 'cause love, that is all we see. I was brought up to live in society where kind of reality is based around profanities. Can you say love? Just one word, love. I won't take no more, I won't settle down till I'm 6 feet under with my head in the ground. Life is passing you by. Why don't you grip it by the hand? And lines are drawn in the sand. Touch the cities in which we stand on. Put down your phones and raise your light. Mark your bodies and I'll mark mine. No one can show you, girl, you hold the key. Just live in the moment, 'cause love, that is all we see.